Hey everybody, today I'm starting something big. I'm going to see what happens if I spend over 100 days in Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Well, technically I played 1,322 days, but we'll get to that later. If you're new to the series, Rune Factory is basically the best of both worlds. Part farming, life sim, part action RPG. You can grow crops, cook, tame monsters, build relationships, and then head out into the wild to battle enemies and explore dungeons. The series began back in 2006 as a spin-off of Harvest Moon, pitched as a fantasy Harvest Moon. It kept the farming and village life we love, but mixed in dungeon crawling, monster taming, and RPG combat. Over the years, we got sequels on the DS, experiments on the Wii and PS3, eventually Rune Factory 4 on the 3DS, widely considered a fan favorite. The series went quiet for almost a decade after the original developer shut down, but it finally returned with Rune Factory 5 in 2022. Now, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma takes the formula in a fresh direction. Instead of one small town, you're restoring and leading entire seasonal villages, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, each with its own shrine and guardian deity. You'll still farm, fight monsters, and fall in love, but now you're also building up communities, exploring floating islands, and uncovering a deeper story tied to dragons and the world's collapse. When I started this playthrough, I thought about going for 100% completion. I plan to max out every bond, level all my skills and weapons, and raise every crop to level 9. But as I worked through the game, I realized some of these activities are just massive time sinks. So instead I decided to go with my main goals as the following. Get all bonds to level 10, raise all crops to level 9, complete side quests like the frog statues, fishing challenges, and Jizo statues, marry and have kids, raise all villages to level 10, and of course, complete the main story and all post-game quests all the way to the very end. Since Guardians of Azuma is a very story-heavy in the beginning, the early days will be focused on the main storyline. Later, especially in the post-game, we'll shift more towards bonds, farming, and completing all those extra goals. If you're excited to see how far I can get in 100 days of Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It lets me know that you want more big challenge runs like this. With all that, let's head into day 1. Day 1 started in pure chaos. One second I was choosing my character, the next I was staring at strange runes, a massive white dragon, and suddenly I'm locked into combat with someone riding an enormous black dragon. Just as quickly as it began, everything faded to white, and I woke up in a quiet shrine. That's where I met Iroha, a cheerful villager who seems to be friends with everybody. She put me straight to work pulling weeds in a nearby field. Not exactly heroic stuff, but I guess everyone has to start somewhere. After that, things only got weirder. Iroha asked me to dance in front of a statue, and somehow that activated it. Before I could make sense of it, Suzu shows up with lunch, which I gladly accepted, and then Sakaki wandered over too. Apparently in this village, everyone shares in your business whether you like it or not. Sakaki told me about something called the Celestial Collapse, some great disaster that left the world in decline. Also, Suzu mentioned she's seen a strange animal around the village, but when we searched for it, we came up empty. By the time the sun set, I hadn't found any answers, so kind of just went to bed. I meet some pink-haired lady in my dreams who's talking about giving me her treasure and begging me to beat her drum. That's probably the weirdest part because I'm promptly awakened by a flying woolly with horns and a giant necklace. After some back and forth, he reveals that he's actually a dragon, and I decided to name him Woolby. He warns me about a black dragon that's draining life from Azuma and explains that he made me an earth dancer. Before I can process all that, Iroha bursts in with urgent news. A monster is attacking the village. Turns out it's a black dragon, and hot on his tail is a massive floating ship that casually opens fire with cannons like it's no big deal. Never mind the innocent villagers below. That's when I meet the ship's crew, Maro and Hina. Sakaki gives me the rundown on the blight spreading across the land and how the village's tree was damaged in the attack, which means it has to be removed. Wolby teaches me that I can use the drum that I received to revitalize dead trees. After testing it out, I dance at the big tree and watch it spring back to life. That's when I meet Ulalaka and her huge assets. She offers to let me keep the drum and also teaches me about leveling up my skills. Meanwhile, Sakaki decides he's had enough of running a 3-person village and basically guilts me into taking over. That's when I receive the Terra Tiller. With it, I can till the land and start farming. I mess around with planting seeds, watering crops, and learning the usual Rune Factory basics. They even teach me that the drum can be used to speed up crop growth, something I promptly forget about for a long time. By the end of the day, Ulalaka is impressed enough to power up our village to level 2. I plant a few more seeds, tidy up the fields, and call it a night. Day 3 started with a surprise. The town carpenter Takumi was missing. Naturally, I was volunteered to go searching for him in the wilds. Before heading out, I was handed a hammer and an axe. Apparently, these are tools for essential finding missing person missions. I don't know. Iroha gave me a quick cooking lesson, which I appreciated, though I didn't actually have time to practice it. Venturing into the unknown, I ran into plenty of monsters, all of whom seemed eager to return to the Forest of Beginnings. Along the way, I met Croaky, a peculiar little fellow who tasked me with finding all of these frog statues in Azuma and reporting back. He was special to say the least. My journey eventually led me into an abandoned shrine, where a creepy samurai appeared to be stalking me. Navigating through the shrine, I encountered more monsters and the frog shrines Croaky had mentioned. At the dead end, I faced Mizuki, and I thought I had him taken care of until the unseen samurai reappeared and finished him off. That's when the twist hit. Takumi was actually Mizuki the whole time. We also learned the identity of the trope-filled samurai Murasame. After returning Takumi to the town, he was extremely grateful and offered to give me anything for saving his life. Sakaki handed me a bow and gave me a quick lesson on fulfilling requests around town. I also learned how to construct buildings, did some farm work, and set up a few housing plots. Talking to everyone in town was interesting because they acted like they never met me before. They reintroduced themselves and went back to acting as if nothing happened. By the end of the day, I did a little more exploring, reflected on the strange turns my day had taken, and finally called it quits, ready to see what the next day in Azuma would bring. Day 4 started with a reminder that it was Murasame's birthday. Convenient timing, I guess. Since the first thing on my agenda was a stroll around the village, I caught up with everyone, helped out with little activities, and tended to my farm. Along the way, I learned about scenic scores and how placing decorations and buildings would boost the village's charm. Before I knew it, the village was up to level 5, not bad for my second day as chief. Takumi wanted to meet and insisted I take some villagers out to the field with me, because nothing says responsible leader like dragging random civilians into a forest full of monsters. I put together a party, and let's just say questionable choices, and braced myself for combat. We ventured into Guardian's Grove and encountered a monster who had once been a human. Naturally, I decided this would be a great idea and invited back to the village. The rest of the afternoon was spent exploring the wilds, fighting monsters, and generally making sure everyone stayed alive. By evening, I returned to the village, planted a few more seeds, and finally collapsed into a well-earned slumber. Day 5 began with a mysterious visitor overnight, talking about good deeds. When we woke up, we discovered a treasure chest filled with rice and a note of thanks. No time to dwell on the mystery, there was work to be done. We completed some requests, picked up new ones, chatted with townsfolk, and took care of our farming chores around the village. Once that was handled, we headed back into the wilds to battle more monsters. Along the way, we stumbled upon an archery target. Upon hitting it, we met Yoichi, a man strangely fascinated by archery and eggplants. Naturally, this combination set the stage for a series of inappropriate jokes. He introduced himself and told us about the hidden targets he set up around Azuma. Eventually, we made our way to the grove we had been told about and came face to face with a massive cursed tree that seemed determined to destroy me. After a tense encounter, I managed to turn it into kindling. With the grove cleared, we explored more of the wilderness and dealt with additional monsters before returning to Takumi. Handing him some cursed lumber, he repaired the shrine in mere minutes. Then things got even weirder. Woolby got a little worked up and told me to recite a prayer. It was then revealed Woolby wasn't just a friendly flying woolly, he was the white dragon from my scattered memories all along. We hopped on his back and took to the skies, learning more about the celestial collapse as we flew. Curious, I decided to check out a nearby island. I was immediately greeted by Oni galore, but after wiping the floor with them, I arrived at a new location, the Summer Village. There I met Kusatsu, Tsubame, and Hisui. We spent some time speaking with them around town to learn more about the god of the Summer Shrine. When we swung by the shrine itself, no one was home, though a little girl watched us from afar, giving me serious, might need to be committed vibes. After wandering through Summer Village and exploring a bit of Spring Village, I finally decided to call it a day and hit the hay, wondering what adventures tomorrow would bring. Day 6 started with another dream invasion. This time, the summer god appeared, offering me a ridiculously cool flame sword. Armed with my new weapon, I took a morning stroll through the Spring Village. I stopped by Mirasame's house, only to find him deep in training, as any disciplined swordsman would be. While wandering around the town, I ran into Ulalaka, who was eager to help the villagers. Together we discovered a few abandoned buildings in need of restoration. Takumi stepped up, revealing his true skill as a carpenter. He and his crew quickly worked to make sure that the derelict houses were safe for new villagers. Next I stopped by Iroha's shop, where she asked me and Woolby to help promote her tea house by flying around and dropping flyers. It felt like an abuse of dragon labor, but I complied. I then continued improving Spring Village, tending to the crops and placing more housing for villagers. Another check on Mirasame revealed more training, nothing new there. Back in Summer Village, the creepy little girl offered to show me a way into the shrine, on one condition. I had to play hide and seek. Naturally, I found all her hiding spots and gained access to the shrine. Immediately, Kusatsu accused me of stealing the shrine relic. Hisui sent me to the limestone caverns to retrieve it though. On my way, I battled monsters along the shores and discovered patches of purple blight which could be cleansed with fire. I also stumbled across a mysterious hole where a voice from deep within requested onigiri. I tossed one down and the voice was thrilled. It even let me choose a chest with a prize inside. The day ended in a final check-in at Mirasami's house. Turns out he trains so obsessively that it's almost impossible to stop him. Which is odd, but we roll with it for now. With nothing else to do, I called it a day and sank in the bed, wondering, what's going to happen tomorrow? Day 7 started with a familiar surprise. The spirits from the Jizo statue stopped by again, leaving me a little present, just like the big man who swings by in the winter. I spent the morning visiting everybody in the spring village, tending the crops and clearing patches of blight in the outskirts. Iroha mentioned that Ulalaka had been trying to help the villagers using her godly magic, but the townsfolk preferred to handle things themselves. We decided to give her a task. Just watch out for monsters while the carpenters worked. It quickly became clear that Ulalaka wanted to help everyone with her powers, but the villagers preferred she save her magic for herself and just be a normal person. With that settled, we swing by Iroha's, where a massive crowd has gathered. She seemed to be enjoying the chaos, so we let her be. I spent some time improving the spring village, placing buildings and decorations to make it more welcoming. By afternoon, I returned to the wilds near the summer village for more exploration. While making my way to the limestone caverns, I discovered a hidden hot spring, and of course I had to try it out. Also, I found one of Yoichi's hidden archery targets and received a curious eggplant recipe from him. After exploring the summer shores a bit more, I returned to the shrine and called it a night. Day 8 began like any other, chatting with villagers and tending the crops. I stopped by Iroha's shop and noticed that the crop of the previous day had vanished. Her shop had been a one-hit wonder, really. We offered her some tips to make her dango more appealing, and she asked us to fetch a few ingredients to help improve her recipe. Once we handed over the items, she got to work crafting her high-quality dango. After that, we headed to the limestone caverns. Cutting through the monsters was pretty straightforward until we encountered the spectral warrior mounted on his ghostly steed. After a tense duel, we defeated him and recovered the relic that had gone missing from the summer shrine. The villagers agreed a blacksmith needed inspected, so I met up with Kihachi, who restored the sword without issue. Instead of returning the blade immediately, I decided to spruce up Spring Village a bit, placing decorations to bring it up to level 6. With that side task complete, we returned to the summer shrine, performed a prayer to the blade, and were treated to a dazzling light show. That's when we met Matsuri, who unlocked the power of the Kagura. No rest for the heroes though. We quickly responded to a group of monsters heading towards the town. After dealing with them, Hisui informed us that the summer village lacked a chief and suggested we take up the mantle. Naturally, we agreed, checked in with the villagers one last time, and then called it a night. Day 9 started with a useful discovery. The Kagura can now be used to harvest seeds from our crops, with a chance to upgrade them into higher quality crop seeds. I tried it on a few plants before harvesting the rest and sending everything off to the shipping bin. The day quickly filled up with village activities, spending time with the villagers and helping out wherever I could. I stopped by Iroha's to sample all the new dango she made, and it became quickly clear just how fiercely passionate she is about her sweets. Later, we helped erect buildings in the summer village as requested by Matsuri, and before long, the village leveled up to 2. After a quick chat with her, we were instructed to head towards the autumn village, but first I planted some crops and decided to check out some of the floating island nearby. One island was covered in mushrooms, where I met a man calling himself Professor Fungus. He claimed he could tell a mushroom's type just by tasting it, and generously offered to either do it for us or let us sample alongside of him. Naturally, I couldn't resist joining him in taste testing, risking my life and limb with every bite. After surviving the fungal gauntlet, I explored a few more floating islands before returning to bed, ending day 9 and kind of wondering what's going to happen next. Day 10 started with the usual chores, farming, chatting with townsfolk, and clearing out old bosses. In the process, Summer Village leveled up to level 3, unlocking the ability to hold contests. I went ahead and quickly scheduled a quick meal contest for day 13 in the village. After some construction and decorating in both villages, Woolby and I set off to explore more of the floating islands. We discovered Bamboo Island, home of the Sage of Sweets, a gentleman with an impeccable taste for the finest desserts in all of Azuma. I presented him with some freshly made dango, which left him unimpressed, though he did sense a tiny spark of budding culinary skill. He tasked me with making honey toast and bringing it back for evaluation. From there, we traveled to the Autumn Village, where we met Kataro, a mischievous troublemaker, and Yachio, the local izakaya owner. After a quick stroll around the village, we visited the shrine and met Chui Long, who directed us to an unusual guest waiting at the izakaya. While waiting, we checked in with Croaky and spent some time hanging out with the villagers. When we returned to the izakaya, we met a masked man who mentioned the Mikoshi melee before leaving without paying his tab. Clearly the polite sort. Later, we caught Twei Long stargazing. He gave us a brief lesson on the stars before we returned to the shrine to end the evening. Our peaceful sleep didn't last long, though. In our dreams, an unknown man delivered an ominous message. We were warned not to hold the Mikoshi melee. And then, mysteriously, he bestowed upon us his sacred treasure. The morning begins with a revelation from my dreams. I've spoken with the Autumn God, and his sacred treasure of all things is a fan. Not exactly the coolest treasure, but I'll take it. After some casual socializing in town, I catch up with Ulalaka and invite her to help me harvest Sakaki's fields. She's all in, but I quickly lose interest and decide that talking to the other villagers and slaying monsters is way more my speed. Later, I swing by Iroha's shop and find the place swamped. Massive lines, a packed crowd, and the kind of wait times you expect at a theme park. Of course, that kind of attention attracts troublemakers. Thankfully, Hina steps in, offering her services as a bodyguard to keep the peace while business blooms. I naturally avoid responsibility again and spend the afternoon wandering around. I stop at Professor Fungus's place and give him some more mushrooms, and his methods are always questionable when it comes to testing these things. As night falls, I head to the izakaya and meet Kai, who immediately proves himself the resident rebel. He tests me with tracking down Lord Kirama's Mikoshi, hidden somewhere inside the ominously named mechanical maze. Sounds like fun to me. Before wrapping up the day, I tinker with the layout of the summer village, move buildings and decorations around like I'm playing city planner, and with that settled, I call it a night and get some much needed rest. I start the day with Wooby acting like the world's most magical calendar app. Out of nowhere, he reminds me it's Tsubame's birthday. Apparently my dragon's got a better social life than I do. After shaking off the grogginess, I spend some time cleaning up the spring farm, planting seeds, and actually organizing the plots for once. A quick check-in at the summer farm follows, and then I pay a visit to Tsubame and hand her my most prized possession, a level 1 onigiri. Nothing says happy birthday like bottom tier rice balls. Later, I track down Matsuri and manage to bump the summer village up to level 4. Progress feels good, but the autumn fields are calling, so I'd head over to the new village and start cleaning. The place is massive and it's drowning in blight, so I spend most of the afternoon working, clearing, and cleaning. I make my way towards the maze Kai told me about. The winding path leads me through castle-like walls, all the way up to the entrance of the mechanical maze itself. By then it's already late, and I figured charging into a dangerous labyrinth at night isn't the brightest move. Instead, I swing by my favorite fungi fanatic, Professor Fungus, to get more mushrooms identified. After making some deeply questionable life choices involving taste testing random wild mushrooms, I decide it's best to save the maze for daylight, so I head back to the shrine and go straight to bed. Day 13 was no ordinary morning. It was contest day. After finishing my usual chores, I carefully selected my dish for the quick meal contest, a bonito flake onigiri. Not exactly a 5-star entree, but hey, I tried. I handed it off to Matsuri, crossing my fingers she wouldn't spit it out on the spot. When the results came in, the winner was me. That's right, first place with nothing more than a glorified rice ball. I walked away with about 13,000 gold, a loaf of bread, and a shiny medal worth a fortune. Apparently, rice and fish flakes are the peak of culinary achievement in Azuma. Riding high on that success, I immediately scheduled a harvest contest for day 19. No time like the present to print more prize money. Not one to bask in glory for too long, though. I head back to the ominously named mechanical maze to track down Lord Kurama's missing Mikoshi. The maze was crammed with monsters, but we carved a path through it until a giant tanuki tried to squash us flat with butt stomps. After the brawl, the truth came out. It was just Kataru, hiding the Mikoshi under orders from the Autumn God himself. Turns out the Mikoshi melee isn't some sacred ritual, it's really smashing Mikoshis together until one breaks. Long agreed to build us our own Mikoshi, but we needed more participants. That meant hustling to recruit villagers, or in my case, just moving folks from one town to another to help pad the numbers. With enough people on board, the melee was scheduled for tomorrow. I wrapped up the evening with some errands and called it a night, resting my champion chef head on a pillow. The morning started with routine prep, setting up the farming areas in both spring and summer villages, planting seeds, and laying the groundwork for raising every crop to level 9. The real highlight of the day, though, was the Mikoshi melee. Imagine a sacred festival that's really just people ramming shrine floats into each other until something breaks. After a few satisfying collisions, I sent up a prayer and the Mikoshi recovered from the maze cracked open. And out came a monster because, of course, it did. The chase led us into the autumn fields, and here's unfortunately where my completionist brain kicked in. I decided I can't push the story forward unless I've scrubbed every inch of this map, so instead of a quick pursuit, I spent the rest of the day clearing monsters, blight, and obstacles. By the time I carved through the good portion of the field, the sun was already setting, so you know what? The monster could wait, because I got some map work to do. After a little bit more work, I head to bed for the night. After knocking out my morning chores, I returned to the autumn fields to track down the monsters that escaped from the Mikoshi. The problem is that the land was still choked with blight and crawling monsters, so I worked on clearing the corruption and carving a path deeper into the fields first. Eventually I reached a wide clearing where waves of Tengu decided to descend on me. After cutting through the ranks, their leader finally appeared, the Great Storm Tengu. The battle was fierce, but victory was mine. No sooner than the dust settled than Kurama appeared, furious. In his rage, he blasted Kai straight into the sky like Team Rocket, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. With Kurama now freed, the winds began returning to the Autumn Village. He granted me the power of the fan and tasked me with awakening the remaining gods. The responsibility didn't end there, though. Yachio approached me and, in what's becoming a disturbing trend, asked me to become the chief of the Autumn Village. Apparently Kai wasn't cut out for the job, so once again I have to step up and take over. Soon after, I found Kotaru sulking. Kurama appeared, because of course he always does, and explains to me that Kotaru was upset that the barn didn't have any animals. To fix that, he taught me how to tame monsters, and in classic Rune Factory fashion, my very first monster I tamed was a Baphomet. The game decided to name him Angus, and honestly, I couldn't have picked a better name myself. With Angus happily moving away, the Autumn Village leveled up to 2, and unlocked the ability for the villagers to help with barn work. Later on, Kurama appeared and nudged me towards heading over to the Winter Village for my next destination. Before setting out though, I dressed up the Autumn Village with more buildings and decorations, raising it up to level 4. The rest of the afternoon was spent on miscellaneous tasks, construction, decoration, farming, all kinds of chores across the villages. Nothing dramatic, but just steady progress. By nightfall, I was more than ready to call it a night. The day began with much needed crop and village management, reassigning jobs, tidying up responsibilities, and keeping everything running smoothly. Once that was out of the way, I headed over to the autumn fields to tame a couple cluckadoodles and a horse. I also decided to pay a quick visit to my favorite eccentric professor, Professor Fungus. Afterwards, I shifted back into villager planner mode. Decorating continues to be a nightmare. Let's just say that my artistic vision isn't very good. Everything ends up just being jammed in the corner for the sake of my sanity, but hey, you know what? It gets the job done. A meeting with Matsuri bumps the summer village up to level 6 and feels like solid progress to me. After a quick lunch break, I decided it's time to travel to the Winter Village, and wow, cold doesn't even describe this place. The weather, the people, even the atmosphere had a chill. I met Pilika and Zaza, who told me about the massive wolf that Pilika had been hunting. As a fellow fisher myself, I met my new favorite character, Watarase. His entire life revolves around fishing, and I couldn't vibe harder with that. He described an encounter with the wolf that everyone's looking for. He handed me a fishing rod and suggested a promising fishing spot where the beast might appear. I tested the rod at the waterfall in the Winter Wilds, casting a line but finding no wolf. Instead I ran into what can only be described as a My Chemical Romance fan. Black outfit, mysterious aura, and they were staring at an injured Wooly. I healed the Wooly, but then she disappeared. I assumed maybe she had a parade to attend to or something. Back in the village, I catch up with Watarase again. He confirms the winter god isn't female, which means whoever I encountered out there remains a mystery. With no answers for now, I close the evening at the izakaya before finally calling it a night. Day 17, and once again, my dreams were hijacked. This time by a tailed man carrying an umbrella. He transformed into a wolf, showing off his Twilight cosplay before fading away. When I woke up from my dream, there was an umbrella laying right next to me, and you know what to say, finders keepers. I began the day with my regular chores, and to my surprise, there was golden pumpkins that were ready to harvest in my fields. I'd stumbled across them on an island earlier, never expecting Azuma to casually grow legendary vegetables like it was no big deal. After tending to the other crops and running through the villages to wrap up our quest, it was time to head back to the Winter Village. There, I regrouped with Watarase, Pilika, and Zaza. They told me more about Kamarasaki and his destructive powers. The real concern now is that the Winter God might fall to the Blight and end up walking the same path as Kamarasaki. In order to stop that, we decided we needed to search more fishing spots in the Winter Wilds where the Winter God might appear himself. As I explored the Winter Wilds, I stumbled across more of Yoichi's hidden targets, which greatly pleased him. Time slipped away faster than I realized though, and I only managed to check 2 of the 3 fishing spots before the day ended, and no winter got in sight, so I'm just gonna go get some rest. Day 18 kicked off with some excitement. The Harvest Festival is tomorrow, and the Jizzo statues decided to drop off a few more gifts. With my morning already looking up, I made the rounds, tending to the villages before heading back into the winter wilds. I wrapped up most of my exploration and finally reached the last spot where the wolf might appear. Still nothing though. Just as I was about to call it quits, Wadarase's voice echoed from the distance. I rushed to find him and learned a new trick. Apparently the umbrella from my dream can catch strong winds and launch me across the landscape, practical and stylish. Watarase told me about one final fishing spot to check, but there was a catch. The area was sealed off by a heavy blight, and we'd need to clear it before getting through. Logical me knew this was the next step. Actual me decided to immediately run in the opposite direction and keep exploring instead. Why worry about potentially feral wolf gods when there's blighted fields, frog statues, and villagers to charm? So that's how I spent the rest of my day, burning out blight, toppling monsters, uncovering statues, and focusing on the things that actually keep Azuma moving forward. The Harvest Festival has finally arrived, though I started the morning the same as always, working on leveling crop. It's not glamorous, but raising every crop to level 9 has become one of my self-imposed goals, so every day begins with tending to the fields. When the contest began, I proudly submitted my entry, an Ultra Onion. In Rune Factory, crops can occasionally grow into an oversized version of themselves, and I figured nothing would impress the judges more than showing off just how massive my onions are. Wink. To my surprise, it actually worked. I actually won. The prize money was generous for the effort, and I was so pumped by the victory that I immediately registered for another harvest contest the following week. With the festival behind me, I took advantage of my umbrella's wind catching powers to revisit old zones. Between treasures, frog statues, and new pathways, the umbrella really felt like the final tool needed to clean up these areas. I also spent some time adding more buildings and decorations, bumping up village levels if I could. Then it was time to climb White Wolf Mountain. With the fan and umbrella combo, I cut through the monsters with style, even catching another one of Yoichi's targets along the way. At the peak, a massive white wolf emerged, fierce and unrelenting. After a tough battle, the My Chemical Romance cosplayer appeared again and ambushed me. Before things got out of hand, Pilika intervened, ending the stalemate. I do another prayer ritual and the truth is revealed. The white wolf is actually the winter god Fubuki. Pilika is actually disappointed that this wasn't Kamarosaki, but Fubuki still granted me his blessing, empowering my umbrella with his new abilities, like shield me from rain. Of course, no divine revelation ends without a promotion. Zaza approached me and like clockwork asked me to become the chief of the winter village. At this point, everybody wants me to be the village chief, but nobody asks how the village chief is doing. But still, I accepted being the winter village chief. With my new role comes new responsibilities, and so I'm tasked with expanding the winter village. After clearing some of the land, I hit a lumber shortage, so the rest of the evening was spent chopping some wood until my arms fell off, basically. The morning was all about construction. More buildings, more decorations, more village upgrades. At this point, it's safe to say that this will be a running theme until the very end of the game. And just a quick note, if you don't hear me mention things like farming, raising crop levels, handing out gifts, or completing requests, it's not because I stopped doing them, it's just that it's more of a daily routine and there's not much new going on when I do them. Back in the winter village, I placed down the requested items and pushed the village level up to 4. With that milestone reached, I got to work planning winter crops to start leveling and harvesting them for the long grind ahead. The rest of the day was pretty uneventful, so we'll just skip ahead to the next day. I don't know how anyone managed to get a restful sleep in Azuma. Every night, it feels like the gods are barging into my dreams with more orders. This time I was asked to help lower a barrier blocking part of the land to help restore the gods' power. No pressure at all, right? Back in the waking world, I caught up with Matsuri, who taught me how to bring more villagers with me when I'm venturing out. Afterwards, I reported some new frog statue findings to Kroki, then I ran into Matsuri again in the spring village, where she happily informed me that the summer village had reached level 7. Wanting a break from my divine chores, I decided to test out some new cooking recipes. Turns out you can actually cook alongside the villagers, so Ulalaka and I teamed up in the kitchen. Together we whipped up a delicious springtime rolled egg dish. God save me, she really can do it all. Later I bumped into Maro, a city-born villager who was completely overwhelmed by Azuma's open fields. We agreed that someday I should visit his homeland to see how different it is, then went our separate ways. Immediately after, I stumbled into Hina, Kotaro, and Suzu arguing over a doll. You know what Hina's solution was? Just rip it in half. The kids were horrified, but quickly agreed to take turns instead. Hina means well, or at least I think so. Iroha, meanwhile, was stuck in her shop dealing with the shady types her booming business had started attracting. Things escalated though when one of those shady folks turned out to be a well-known food critic. Iroha overcomplicated her dish and bombed the review, but I managed to earn one last chance for her to impress him. As if this day wasn't full enough, I came across Murasame testing swords for Zaza. He opened up about his troubled past, the dishonor on his family name, and how he trains endlessly to reclaim it. Then he admitted he made a deal with an Ayoma, trading his soul for power. I expressed concern, but he brushed it off. It's not exactly comforting. The evening wrapped with Matsuri and Uraraka casually hanging out, chatting about her duties as the summer god. Afterwards, I checked in with Fubuki and leveled up the Winter Village to level 5. With the divine, the dramatic, and the absurd all crammed into one day, I finished things off with a bit of mingling and exploration before collapsing into bed. Day 22, and it's my birthday! I don't nearly have enough bonds raised yet to rake in some really good presents, but hey, a man can still be happy. Wolby gave me a gift to start the day, and also the Jisu statues came bond through and dropped me off some goodies as well. I hit the farms next, tending to crops and working on raising their levels. Takumi surprised me with sushi for my birthday, a man that truly is after my own heart. I also spent some time decorating the Winter Village, pushing up to level 7 before making my rounds. Tsubame handed me an amethyst as her gift, and while I was in the Summer Village, I overheard talk of strange noises in the night. Clearly a mystery worth investigating. My first stop was Iroha's shop, where I confirmed that the villagers had been gossiping about the same eerie sounds. Before long, all the gods assembled for a meeting. After some discussion, it was decided that a search party, consisting of me, Wolby, and Matsuri, would head out and look into the issue. But before diving into the late night mysteries, I decided to tackle another divine chore, the shrines in the sky. I managed to complete all 4, lowering the barrier and restoring more of the gods' powers. With all the heavy lifting done, I squeezed in some more exploration of the floating islands before calling it a day. Exhausted but content, I ended the night with one thought in mind. Not a bad way to spend a birthday. By now, I've fallen into a comfortable routine. Mornings are for farming, harvesting, raising crop levels, and all the usual field work. And then after the chores, the adventure usually begins. While in Spring Village, I ran into Morrow, who was searching for the location of an old photo he had been carrying. We wished him well on his personal quest, and then took to the skies on Wolby. That's when things escalated quickly. We encountered the Black Dragon and its rider once again. Armed with my bow, I gave chase, firing shot after shot until we finally forced them down. At this moment, when I saw the rider, a memory surfaced, and I cried out a name, Kaguya. Just as quickly as the vision faded, I found myself waking up on a mysterious island with instructions to get some rest. Naturally, instead of sleeping, I decided to do more exploration. While I was exploring, I found another onigiri hole. After completing the request, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go on a pilgrimage and drop off some more rice ball at all these different onigiri holes. I had to swing by the spring highlands, the autumn fields, and the winter wilds. Afterwards, I circled back and met up with Croaky to report on some more of the frog statues, and then I finally decided to call it a night. As usual though, sleep doesn't come without interruption in Azuma. This time, Uraraka invaded my dreams, requesting a meeting with all of the gods. Honestly, this whole thing could have been handled with a group message, but apparently divine beings love meetings. This morning, we met the gods at Iroha's shop for a proper summit. Uraraka led the meeting, and we discussed the Black Dragon and Kaguya's attempt to drain the runes from Azuma. And then came my role as an Earth Dancer. Wolby admitted he was the one that actually made me an Earth Dancer, but refused to explain why. I'd have to remember on my own. Finally, we settled on our next task, locate the 2 remaining gods in order to fully bring down the central barrier. Of course, no one knows where they are yet. The meeting wrapped with a twist though. Murasame had been spying on us. He challenged Matsuri directly and shockingly defeated her, a god beaten by a mortal. Impressed with his own strength, he insisted on joining me in future expeditions, and honestly, I couldn't argue with that. From there, I returned to my bread and butter, doing some work. The Autumn Village climbed up to level 7, and I tamed a King Wooly I spotted earlier, naming him simply and perfectly King. Back in the Summer Village, Matsuri was recovering from her beatdown, but she still helped me raise the village level to 8. Fubuki then taught me the Victory Dance, a once-a-day skill that buffs the party based on the number of villagers in my ranks. While checking in around town, I found Morrow at Zaza's place having her repair his ship. I offered to help gather materials, and soon the ship was well on its way to being repaired. Later, I dropped by Hina's house, and we ended up heading to Iroha's for treats. Along the way, I learned that Hina was traveling because her mom encouraged her to see the world, blending her archaeology work with the journey. In the afternoon, I give the Victory Dance a quick test run. It's pretty flashy and effective. While out in the autumn fields, I nailed more of Yoichi's targets for him, then shifted gears to taming bosses. Both the Cursed Tree and Mizuki joined my ranks before I cleared out some monster quests to raise the Winter Village to level 8. This day isn't over yet though. Matsuri and I investigated the strange noise plaguing the Summer Village. During the search, Matsuri collapsed and we stumbled upon Morrow, who admitted he was just looking for his lost necklace. Saw that twist coming a mile away. and somehow with energy still left to burn, I closed out the night by taming the Spectral Warrior before calling it a true night. The day began with talk of astral shrines. I wasn't sure what that even meant, but Wilby suggested we check in with Murasame for guidance. After my usual morning rounds, I grabbed Uraraka and head over to Sakaki's farm, only to find his crops have been destroyed. Uraraka was furious, but acknowledged that this wasn't a problem we could just throw god powers at. Instead, we decided to plant special flowers that monsters refused to go near. Natural pest control, Azuma style. Today also marked another harvest contest, and I walked away with an easy win thanks to a level 3 king cabbage. Afterwards, I checked in on Matsurai and Maro after the lost necklace fiasco the night before. Turns out the strange door sounds weren't Maro's doing, which left Matsurai unnerved all over again. Later, I caught up with Professor Fungus for more mushroom testing. After downing a few more questionable mushrooms, we realized we'd actually appraised every mushroom variety in Azuma. His life's work was now complete. He announced he'd be traveling to seek new mushrooms abroad and handed me a parting gift, a slightly phallic mushroom statue. I don't know whether to be proud or concerned. With mushrooms behind me, Murasame suggested a lead on an astral shrine. Together we ventured into the Forgotten Grove, cutting through monsters and clearing blight. Along the way, I found more of Yoichi's targets, which earned me another encouraging visit from him. Deeper in, Murasame and I encountered a corpse tree and cut it down, revealing a massive shrine card with astral patterns hidden in the cave behind it. Though he couldn't point to any other sites like it, Murasame recommended asking around the villages for more clues. The rest of the evening was spent expanding my monster stables. I tamed Big Boss Tanuki, the White Wolf, another corpse tree, and even a Dust Tengu. With my stables filling up nicely, I finally called it a night, content with my growing collection of bosses in my barn. The morning started with my usual rounds before I found Moro at Hisui's shop. He was captivated by a lucky cat doll she had on display, but once he left, I asked Hisui if she knew anything about astral shrines. All she could offer up was a vague hint about a cave somewhere nearby. Maru, of course, had been eavesdropping and promptly invited himself along to face whatever danger awaited. Before heading out, I remembered spotting a monster yesterday called Jewel Squeak. Seemed valuable, so I tamed it and sent it to the barn. Better safe than sorry. With that done, we took to the skies and soon discovered a portal leading into the Gale Pass. The area was crawling with monsters, but we cut through them until we ran headfirst into the Grudge Knight. Maro, in his usual reckless fashion, seemed thrilled at the chance to stare at death in the face. After we defeated the knight, we found another shrine inside. As I touched it, the memories of Kagiwa, the woman riding the black dragon, flooded back. In the vision, she and I were going our separate ways, but we exchanged gifts before parting. Meanwhile, Maro discovered a journal that appeared to be Kagiwa's diary. It revealed she had been searching for me desperately before something happened. Maro then shared his own goal, finding the heart of Viatrea, a legendary dragon from his homeland said to grant wishes. With the shrine explored, we left in the same situation as yesterday, still needing a lead on the next astral shrine. Of course, I wasn't about to leave empty-handed. I dove back into the Gale Pass, fought the Grudge Knight again, and tamed him, because why not? Back in the Autumn Village, I ran into Kotaru roleplaying as Yachio. He promised shrine info, but only if I brought him some dango. A strange trade, but fair enough. Later in the Summer Village, I found Matsuri training. She admitted she mostly enjoyed the swordplay aspect of being a god, not so much the responsibilities. We traveled together into the limestone caverns and confronted a lingering grunge spirit. Afterwards, Matsurai seemed reinvigorated, determined to give her role her full effort instead of a half-hearted commitment. Before wrapping up, I helped Uraraka and Sakaki with the crop-eating monster issue. Thankfully, our flower barrier trick worked, keeping the pests away and giving Uraraka a little more confidence in herself. Satisfied, I returned to the shrine and finally shut my eyes for the night. The dawn of the 27th day began with a visit to Iroha's shop, where I found Uraraka brainstorming ways to thank the villagers. Uraraka settled on throwing a party, so we made our rounds to each village to collect their local delicacies for the feast. With that plan in motion, I checked in with Matsuri, who, never one to be outdone, decided she wanted to throw a celebration of her own. Hers came with fireworks, of course. I left her to handle the logistics and delivered the dango Kotaro asked for. In exchange, he shared some backstory and hinted at the location of another shrine. We set off, but to my surprise, Hina was already there, blocking access to the portal. She refused to let us through, so I did the usual, beat her into submission. After our fight, she mentioned Seed, but quickly changed the subject. Then she dropped some lore bombshells. Supposedly, Viatrea migrated to Azuma, and when its body collapsed, it formed the land. The heart became a star, and the shrines may have been used for sacrifices to keep those stars shining. Casual bedtime story stuff. Through the portal, we enter the Twilight Jail, a dungeon full of puzzles, a rare cheat that actually made me stop and think. At the shrine's core, more flashbacks hit. I saw Kaguya training in archery with me and learned that soon I'd be leaving the village. Also, I discovered that Kaguya and I actually been betrothed. For the record, I had looked that word up. It turns out it means engaged. Whether that was an arranged marriage or best friends forever is still up for debate. Hina, being our usual cryptic self, teased us with the word Tagasan brunch and left us with more questions than answers. Heading back outside, I decided to tame the 9 tails because adding a fox yokai to my stables seemed appropriate. Back in the Winter Village, Palika told me about a man named Ikaruga also searching for the shrines. While we were out looking for the shrine, Palika told me about the Forest of Beginnings, where souls return when they're defeated. Eventually we ran into Ikaruga himself, who tried to stop us. Like everyone before him though, he swiftly got put in his place. Before leaving, he tagged Wooly with some kind of charm. Definitely not a friendly gesture. I poked my head into the Frostfang caverns, but decided it was best to save that challenge for another day. Morning rituals completed, I returned to the Frostfang caverns. Cutting through monsters and upgrading gear as I went, I eventually reached the shrine. There, I discovered an amulet, only for Ikaruga to show up, snatch it away, and then smugly hand it back, saying it was already used. It turned out to be the Amulet of Sacrifice, an item that allows its bearer to trade their life for a wish. Worse yet, it once belonged to Kaguya. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. Kaguya had joined the Black Dragon because of this amulet. Another flashback struck, showing me when I used an Amulet of Sacrifice with Mokoshiro, better known as Wolby. I had wished to save Azuma, and in return, I gave up my memories to become an Earth Dancery. Mystery solved, my amnesia was self-inflicted, and Wolby realized it at this moment too. As if that bombshell wasn't enough, we decided to start making our way home, and the camera pans up to the Goth Squad watching us from above. Needing a break from existential revelations, I paid another visit to the Sage of Sweets. I impressed him just enough this time, earning a new culinary challenge, glazed sweet potatoes. Afterwards, I checked in with Matsuri and her festival plans, where she insisted on building a tower, setting up drums, and firing off fireworks. Go big or go home, I guess. And then, just to add insult to injury, after all the grief Ikaruga had caused me, he decided to just move in. The evening brought some peace as I attended Ulalaka's spring celebration. Everybody was drinking, eating, and genuinely happy. Ulalaka thanked me for revitalizing the village and sort of admitted she was in love with me. And to really put the bow on this present of the day, the gods just couldn't leave me alone for another night. As I rested, Kurorama summoned me to host yet another divine meeting, this time in the Autumn Village. Once again, something that could have just been an email. Day 29, and the morning wasn't anything special, just routine chores and a quick stop by Takumi's to discuss building a festival tower for the summer village celebration. With materials in hand, Matsuri was set, and Takumi was ready to get to work. Most of the morning and afternoon were spent assigning villagers to proper towns and jobs, upgrading fields, and adding even more buildings and decorations. My farming empire continues to expand, one decorative shrub at a time. To mix things up, I started working on my fishing catalog, reeling in an ancient fish, a masu trout, and a taimen before shifting gears to far weightier matters, the second meeting of the gods. At the meeting, I revealed the truth. The Black Dragon's rider is my childhood friend, and I showed them the amulets that were tied to our past. Viatre came up again, with its myths of land and stars. Fubuki explained that the body rests in the underworld while the heart shines in the heavens. We debated on how to track the Black Dragon and realized all runes were flowing towards Azuma's center. The plan? Drop the central barrier and lure the dragon in. The catch? Killing the dragon would also kill Kaguya. Kurorama suggested seeking out the god of the underworld, who turned out to be none other than Kai. Kai demanded we use the Danes of Bonds to power him up before offering aid. We obliged, and while Kai grew stronger, he still refused to help. That is, until Yachio reminded him about his unpaid bar tab. Thanks to an enchantment from Ikaruga, if Kai didn't pay up, his manhood would literally shrivel away. Reluctantly, Kai finally helped us and unearthed the gate to the underworld and gave us his sacred treasure, a mask that granted us sumo-like punching powers. Using the mask, I opened the gate, only to be greeted by Mizuki and Gozuki. After putting them to rest, I decided to head into the underworld. Inside the underworld, Kai offered a history lesson and let us know that there's probably some ancient scrolls we want to review. Of course, we couldn't do that yet until we cleared out the current squatters in the underworld. It's kind of getting late though, so I instead opted to call it a day. There's always time for tackling the underworld tomorrow. It's day 30 and the final day of the season. First stop was Iroha's shop. It was her birthday, so I handed her some dango. A little bit later, Sakaki mentioned she'd actually closed her shop to focus entirely on her dango business. In a cutscene, Suzu encouraged her just to keep things simple, and Iroha realized that she didn't need to impress everybody, just stay true to herself. With my chores out of the way, I dove into the underworld to give the local demons a proper demonstration of Earth Dancer justice. Clearing the dungeon took most of the day, and by the end we learned that the main building was actually sealed by a curse requiring the help of a monkey, a bird, and a dog. At the time I was doing this, I assumed that we needed to tame specific monsters for this quest, but me not reading the quest description turned out to be pretty bad for me because it turns out all I had to do was talk to Kai and we could have kept moving forward. Whoops. Back in the villages, I checked in with Kroki for more recipes and then I dropped by the summer village to see Matsuri prepping for the festival. Unfortunately, she managed to accidentally destroy half of the setup before the party even began. We reassured her it would still be a great celebration and that she was still plenty cool in our books. With her spirits lifted, I decided to head to bed and finish the last day of this season. The first day of summer has arrived and with it came the cooking festival. Strangely, the season change didn't seem to matter much. Since each season has its own village, the calendar shift felt more symbolic than functional to me. At the festival, I submitted my cheese risotto. Naturally, it took first place because when it comes to cooking contests, I don't play around. Over at Iroha's shop, she had me try her latest batch of dango, which was stellar. The gourmand, aka the critic, was there as well, and after giving the dango a second chance, he absolutely loved it. He even offered to set up Iroha with a shop in the city, but she decided to stay with us instead. A wholesome awe moment in my opinion. Back in the underworld, I spoke with Kai and broke the curse sealing the main doors. Inside, I faced off against Lord Ura and proved that skill over muscle. I learned that the Black Dragon's role was to create new nations when needed, while the White Dragon's job was to maintain Azuma. The interesting thing though is that somehow both the dragons currently exist. Kai gave me a staff that would allow me passage into the heavenly realm, since we'll need the heaven and the underworld working together to separate Kaguya from the Black Dragon. Meanwhile, Hina and Kai were conspiring about gaining access to the underworld scrolls to learn more about Viatreya. Hina promptly volunteered me to escort her there when I had the chance. Later in the summer village, Kirarama informed me that the autumn village had reached level 8. When I checked in at Hina's house though, the topic of the Mikoshi melee came up and Kirarama was upset about it. He didn't like how the event let people pay to win, claiming it was unfair and dangerous, a subtle commentary in my opinion. To clear my head, I did some fishing and caught a cherry salmon, crucian carp, char, a can, and a rare can. Then I checked in with the Sage of Sweets, delivering the glazed sweet potatoes he'd requested. I also ended up giving him a honey castella cake and a strawberry milk, but apparently none of my culinary talent could win this guy over. The evening ended on a brighter note with Matsuri's summer festival. Despite her nerves, the party was a hit and she was overjoyed. With that, I decided to close my first day of summer on a high note. Day 32 started the same way all great days do. Kai barging in and demanding we head to the heavenly realm. No time for breakfast, no time for peace, just let's go. Before following him, I handled my morning chores and actually hit a big milestone. Finally producing a level 9 turnip seed. I started late on the crop leveling grind, so don't judge me too harshly, but this felt like progress. Once I met up with Kai, we ascended into the heavenly realm. Along the way, I stumbled across yet another onigiri hole. I handed over the onigiri that was requested and actually found out this was the last onigiri hole in the game, so my reward was a replica onigiri statue. Truly the pinnacle of achievement. Even though this day didn't feel like much happened, the journey still ate up the whole day, and that was fine with me. With the longer days and tougher days coming up, you know what, ending this one a little early is okay with me. Day 33 started quietly enough until I ran into Maro, Hina, and Kai. Naturally, Maro wanted to tag along on this underworld trip. You know, he kind of has a habit of inserting himself into every situation, whether he's invited or not. Down below, Hina actually uncovers some texts, but she'll need time to sift through them before we kind of learn anything useful. Back in the Heavenly Realm, I found Rin covering for Lady Kanata, who was actually currently hiding. Given that she was hiding, you know, finding her actually becomes the next big objective for us. With no immediate leads, I decided to pass the afternoon fishing before heading to bed. Restful sleep is never an option though in Azuma. My dreamscape turned into a godly party room, complete with Kanata crashing in to complain. She admitted that she's been hiding because she caused the celestial collapse. Before I could react, all the other gods joined in, turning the whole thing into chaotic divine conference call. Kanata slipped away again, but Ulalaka, never missing an excuse to drink, suggested we actually host a party to draw her back out of her hiding hole. The morning began with Hina, who revealed that the texts she'd been studying didn't really tell us anything that we didn't already know. Still, the fact that it was written down gave the information more weight to it. After that, I spent most of the day fishing to fill out my Pescopedia, saving my energy for what was coming up. That evening, I headed into the summer village to throw a party designed to lure out Kanata. Food, drinks, fireworks, nothing was spared. The mysterious little girl that we once played with hide and seek with showed up and immediately started devouring everything in sight. I recognized her for who she really was and blessed her, revealing Kanata's true form. She tried to be angry, but it's kind of hard to stay mad when all your friends are throwing a party just to welcome you back. The mood, though, did shift when we finally discussed the celestial collapse. Kanata admitted that it was part of a necessary cycle and confessed she had tried and failed to stop it, leaving her burdened with guilt. Still, she agreed to help us and empowered my staff. With the plan finally in place, we took to the skies to drop that barrier. The Black Dragon emerged and we gave chase, whittling it down until it collapsed. The gods cast Severance, briefly separating Kaguya from the dragon. She was alive, but only for a quick moment before being struck down by the shadowy crew in black regalia. Their leader quickly dispatched all the gods and nearly finished me off too, until unexpected reinforcements arrived to hold them back. Wolby carried me into the skies, but Kaguya was fading fast. I chose to use the revitalized Amulet of Sacrifice, offering up my wealth, and let's be honest, I only had about 10k at the time, so didn't matter. In exchange, Kaguya was revived, and we returned to the Spring Village. I was shaken but fine. Kaguya, on the other hand, remained bedridden. The gods had taken heavy damage, and we learned that the black-clad crew belonged to the Tegenseibro. Hina explained that she knew this because she worked for SEED, a peacekeeping organization, and her assignment was to monitor the Tegenseibro activity. As if that wasn't enough to process, I visited Murasame's place and felt the oppressive aura of the Yomi he had bargained with. It loomed stronger than ever. Finally, as I tried to rest for the night, Fubuki instead decided to visit me in my dreams. He reassured me that he was alright, though the other gods were still reeling from the attack. He asked me to activate devices that would help stabilize the barrier around the heart so they could quickly recover. I agreed, and then at last I could finally get some rest. Day 35 kicks off with major disappointment in my life. My prized level 8 eggplants failed to give me any level 9 seeds, so I had to restart the process again. My spinach, though, decided to pull its weight and upgraded to level 9, so we'll take that win. Around this point as well, I finally remembered that the drum speeds up crop growth, so let's just say forgetting that little trick probably cost me weeks of progress, but better late than never. Out in the world, I spot Murasame heading out for training again, looking like a man absolutely possessed. We can't intervene yet, so I make note to catch him before his next training session. I opt to head skyward and discover the Fleeting Flower Village, rumored to house one of the devices that would need to bolster this barrier. After pushing through its dungeon, I reach the Holy Shrine, and wouldn't you know it, Veyron is waiting for us. He casually drops the name of the blonde woman we've seen before, Clarice, and then he immediately challenges me. One lesson later, I flatten him, and in true villain fashion, he hops into a suitcase and vanishes. Ulalaka shows up afterwards, holding her own despite the recent chaos. She asked me to check in with Matsuri soon, since she took the brunt of the damage. Meanwhile, Ikaruga is still investigating, but he has no leads. Back at my shrine, Ira visits looking pretty weighed down with guilt. She's unsure how to help us really in this situation. I reassure her that she's okay and she doesn't need to worry about us, and in return she gifts us with a fan to carry instead of our branch. This fan represents the land of Azuma around us and all that we love. After admiring my new fan, I decided to call it a night and get started fresh tomorrow. It's day 36 and it's actually Wolby's birthday today. Unfortunately, the game doesn't let me do anything about it. No gifts, no cakes, not even a card. I'm pretty disappointed, but we give him our best wishes anyway. After my usual morning chores, I set my sight on the Summer Holy Shrine, which turns out to be buried deep inside the Gold Blossom Mines. Along the way, I spot more of Yoichi's archery targets. At this point, I'm starting to wonder though, how in the world is he sneaking around all these dungeons and setting up these targets? Eventually I track down the shrine, but I'm not the only one. The Helm was already there. And his loyalty might be admirable, but it won't save him from a good beatdown. I teach this dog a new trick and off he goes with his tail between his legs. Back outside, Matsuri is finally up and moving again, with Kanata keeping her company. Maro swings by and drops some intel. Apparently a Tagensei brunch base is in the Autumn region? It could be our chance to get close to Clarice, though sneaking past security might be easier said than done. On a brighter note, Kaguya is actually free of the Black Dragon's control. She admits she was in a state of flux during all that chaos, but I'm feeling merciful, so I invite her to join the effort to save Azuma. With all that handled, I get the Summer Village up to level 9, and I swing by Croaky's place to check in on him and give him the 411 on some frog statues. Back in the Spring Village, we bring Matsuri along to confront Murasame. That goes as smoothly as you expect. Sunny, the Yomi itself, stirs the pot. Matsuri scolds him for leaning on his Yomi powers, and Murasame completely misses the point. So I do what any responsible leader would do. I knock him out cold. When he comes to, at least he's thinking a little more clearly again and admits that he needed some time to reflect. Over in the Autumn Village, Kotaro's catching a little heat for his pranks, but more importantly, my plan to meet Clarice is shaping up. You know what the idea is? We're going to use Tanuki magic to disguise myself as a Wooly. The only problem is I need a transformation leaf to pull it off. But that's a quest for another day because I'm just going to go get some shut-eye now. The day begins with Murasame finally opening up about the Yoma. He admits he was foolish to ever make a deal with it and has come to terms with that. Noble, sure, but I had bigger priorities at the moment, namely my crops. And let me tell you, it was worth the delay because my eggplants finally hit level 9. A glorious farming victory, the kind that makes you forget about your buddy's cursed soul problems. With morale high, I go after the transformation leaf. Ulalaka informs me that I need a woolly heart, but it's not as grim as it sounds. We're talking metaphysical heart, not surgery. Kotari teaches me the ropes of transformation, and before long, I'm slipping into a woolly disguise like it's a casual Friday. With my new persona, I stroll straight into the Tagasana base, past the guards without so much as a sniff. I decide to ransack their supplies, and then I finally head over to where Clarice is sitting. Then we learn her tragic past. Her entire village was wiped out by Kamarosaki. We then learn about the Dragon Casket, an artifact that's able to break its way to where the heart is currently. This conversation is not exactly cheerful, but then the Hound loyally presents to her an amulet of sacrifice and they make their exit. Afterwards, Hina fills us in on the full story of Clarice's fall. Her village was experimenting with rune power machines, which was definitely causing major issues. The Tanabata festival is this evening, and apparently I've been volunteered to become the wish granter. Kanata usually handles this, but I decided to give it a shot anyways. I bumbled my way through the process, but managed to answer 3 wishes, making the villagers happy and wrapping up the festival on a high note. Just when I thought I might actually get some uninterrupted rest this evening, Kirarama drops by my dreams again, nudging me towards finding his shrine. These gods really need to learn about office hours. Day 38 and Murasame is at my front door again, looking more determined than ever. We head out of the village, pick a secluded spot in case the Yoma decides to fight back. Sure enough, Sunny clings on like a leech, refusing to let go. I do a little bit of percussion therapy, and that's all it kind of takes. We knock some sense into her. With the bond broken, Murasame is free, though he still feels gratitude towards Sunny for the company she gave him at his lowest. Before fading away, Sunny makes us promise to look after him. With that weight lifted, I swing by Yachio's place since it's her birthday. As any izakaya owner would appreciate, I gift her some fine sake. After the detour, it's shrine hunting time. The trail leads me to the Palace of Serendipity, where the next holy shrine lies in wait. Unfortunately, so does Clarice, once again showing up like she's about to drop her debut My Chemical Romance cover album. I remind her this is more dungeon than Warp Tour, I smack her around a little bit and send her retreating. Back at the Winter Village, all the gods gather for a council. We recap everything. The empire Clarice came from, the trio schemes, and the latest encounter with her. Then Fubuki steps forward, visibly shaken. He admits Kamarosaki, the great threat we've been chasing in spirit, was his brother. Long ago, the gods united to stop him, but Fubuki had to strike the killing blow. Now he blames himself for the chaos unraveling across Azuma, convinced his brother's spirit has infected Clarice and is enacting vengeance through her. The council ends with one conclusion. We need to grow stronger, train harder, and be ready for what's coming. Sounds like the perfect setup for a training montage, but instead I just call it a night. Tomorrow will no doubt bring more gods, more drama, and more cryptic riddles dressed up as dreams. Day 39 starts with some good farming news. My daisies finally hit level 9. Progress may be slow, but the crop loving dream is alive and well. Feeling proud of that, I decided to visit the Sage of Sweets and get my dango evaluated. And plot twist, the Sage of Sweets was actually the housekeeper this whole time. Turns out she had been critiquing everyone's cooking out of spite after years of being dismissed for her own skills. But today she has a change of heart. Loves the dango we brought and crowns me with the title of Grand Master Confectioner. She even gifts me a ladle and some new recipes before leaving on her own journey. Not bad for a pastry checkup. Back in the Spring Village, Murasame and Matsuri are going head to head. It looks like he's on the brink of calling on the Yoma again, but with some help we get him through the temptation. He thanks us for pulling him back from the edge, grateful to have someone steering him away from the dangerous path. Later he shares the training location with us, Rakshaza Gorge. The gorge lives up to its reputation, 4 boss arenas in a row, capped off with a duel against Murasame and Matsuri themselves. I managed to come out on top and they reward me by teaching me the Kamunagi, a devastating ultimate attack. With that skill under my belt, I check in with Sakaki, who asks how Kaguya is doing. When I go to look for her, Takumi mentions she's out, and sure enough I find her battling through mobs in the wild. She's clearly struggling, weighed down with guilt for everything that's happened, convinced she's the cause for all of Azuma's pain. I reassure her that none of this is her fault and everyone is glad that she's here with us. Wolby even offers to help, but later we catch her trying to leave again, desperate to run from her past. Once more, we remind her she's not alone, and that this fight isn't hers to shoulder alone. After all that emotional heavy lifting, I don't even think twice about calling the night. Some days drain you more than any dungeon ever could. Day 40 begins with Kai looming at the foot of my bed. He informs me that there's a revolt brewing in the underworld, a full-blown crisis that's apparently tearing the place apart. I'll get to that, but for now I got crops to tend to. And that pays off because I managed to get potatoes and pink radish seeds up to level 9. As I make my rounds, I stumble on Ikaruga chasing Kotaro through the village. Turns out he's not a fan of Kotaro's transformation powers and wants to lock him up. Yacho had actually asked Ikaru to hunt a monster, but he's wound tighter than a lute string right now, and it's really showing. Over in the Winter Village, Watarase tells me that Fubuki hasn't been around lately, so concerned, I decide to stop by the shrine. After knocking and waiting way too long in the cold, we're finally invited in. Fubuki admits that he's been handling all the requests on his own and he's afraid to scare the villagers. We reassure him that we're here to help lighten the load and remind him that he doesn't need to do everything by himself. Back in the Spring Village, Suzu is nowhere to be found. Kurama says she's been seen in the Winter Village and Hina sheepishly admits that it's her fault. She told Suzu all about her childhood and, hustling by selling fish. Apparently, Suzu took this a little too seriously and ran off to the Winter Village. Meanwhile, in the Autumn Village, Ikaruga and Yachio are discussing the food shortage when a noise trap goes off. It's a massive bear caught red paw stealing supplies. We put that beast down as gently as you can put down a bear, and Ikaruga is still wound tight. He mutters some stuff about some monster he's looking for, but refuses to give us any details. The rest of the evening is quieter, just a few chores before I finally call it the night. Underworld revolt or not, tomorrow's another day. Day 41 starts off dull enough, but then things pick up once I head over to the Heavenly Realm. Checking on Kanata, and turns out she's not busy, she's exhausting. One moment she's handling contaminated water in the Spring Village, the next she's tracking down a missing hairpin in the Summer Village, and she's scolding Kotaro in Autumn for being a culprit behind a string of broken jars. Kotaro was less than thrilled about being caught, but hey, godly justice spares no one. In the underworld, Kai ropes me into helping clear a horde of monsters from the streets. Lord Ura shows his face again, but we already know that routine. Quick fight, another beatdown, same result. We move to check in on the dragon casket, but it's already gone, snatched up by the trio. Veyron lingers behind just long enough to get pummeled once again, though this time he lets us slip that he isn't fully committed to destroying Azuma. Before retreating, he even asks us to look after Clarice. Outside, we watch as the tomb itself flies into the sky and teleports away. Now typically this is where a normal player would keep pushing forward on the main quest, but not me. I decided it's a perfect time to catch up with some friends. I find Ikaruga chatting with Hina, who opens up about her dream about becoming a hero. We remind her that no one starts out a hero, it's something you grow into step by step. After that, I decided to go get some sleep because, you know what, that major crisis can wait till tomorrow. Day 42 starts strangely enough with Woolby waking me up not once but twice. First to remind me about the fishing contest, and then he wakes me up again to check on a gift left by the Jizo statues. Turns out I found all the Jizo statues and cleaned them, so they gave me a Jizo statue decoration. A fitting prize, especially one that wraps up the Jizo statue side quest. At Ihora's shop, I catch up with Kaguya, who we quickly learns a full-blown Dango addict, but it turns out she never really bought anything for her house, really moved in. We give her a list of essentials, and in the process, we quietly stalk her around all the villages. And then she eventually calls us out right around the Winter Village. Still, her anxiety is starting to fade, and she realizes no one blames her for Azuma's current mess, which is progress. On the farming front, both onions and leeks hit level 9 today, which is another great step towards the level 9 goal for crops. Fishing has been a grind of common so far, but today I landed a red king crab, which is a nice rare find. Also, I tracked down the last Yoichi target, which netted me a nice new archery decoration for the village. Day 42 was kind of short, but it's a well-needed break in between everything going on. Day 43 starts with the usual routine of taking care of the villages. After that, we head over to the Winter Village Shrine for the pond smelt catching contest. I scout out the best spots quickly, the top of the boat by Watarase's shop, and a tucked away corner in the Winter Wilds. Between those two spots, I managed to catch about 23 fish, which is a third lead for the contest, so I just end it right there. I decided that I'll just go about my normal routine for the rest of the day. After mingling with some villagers, I head to the shrine around 7 p.m. and claim my prize, number 1 as usual. Nothing else major happened that evening, so I just go to bed and call it one. Day 44 is here, and we got cucumbers and wood swirls up to level 9. We find out Murasame is having his redemption arc. He's been asked to return to the capital as an instructor, but he turns the offer down. You may ask yourself why. It's because I'm that awesome. I check in with Kurama, which bumps the Autumn Village up to level 9, and with that squared away, I decided it's time to focus on the Fishing Encyclopedia, aka Pescapedia. Lucky break for me, it's raining in the summer region, which means there's tons of rare fish to catch finally. I'm running around in a mild panic because I'm trying to get all the fish that I need for this dang Pescapedia. I managed to land a cutlass fish, a seerfish, a marlin, and a sword tips squid. With that completed, I have one more fish to catch, and it's the hardest one, the flounder. I decided to spend my evening trying to catch it, but I have no luck. And to add insult to injury, I forgot that it was Kanata's birthday, so whoops. Anyways, I head to bed and we'll try to fix it tomorrow. Day 45 is here and crop progress continues. We have Cabbage joining the level 9 club today. In the spring village, I run into Marasame and he lets me know that Kaguya has been hogging all the monster hunting requests recently. I try to track her down, but she's elusive at the moment. In the Autumn Village, Kotaro ropes me into clearing out some blight-infested monsters. At the river, we bump into Kaguya again, hunting the same beasts. Together we clear out the monsters, but then we're promptly trapped due to a cave-in. Instead of working together, we decide to waste our time bickering until Whoopi, which is tired of our nonsense, points out the obvious exit. With that issue wrapped up, I decide to head back to the Isle of Fish, and I finally snag the elusive flounder. This might be the one fish that I actually mount and put over my fireplace. I head over to Waterase and let him know that I finished the Pescapedia, and he hands me a basket decoration. My fishing obsession in this game can finally be completed. I decide what better time than to go work on saving the world again. Clarice crashes the Dragon Tome into the barriers, so we decide to storm the floating fortress. We cut down major waves of enemies and we finally face off with the Hound. He transforms into his true form, Kamarosaki, but by this point we're powered enough to smack him down. Fubuki, carrying the weight of his brother's legacy, finishes the job for good. We decide to press through the floating fortress later. It's getting kind of late, so we're going to get some shut-eye for now. Day 46 is here, and I need everybody to buckle in because it's going to be a big one. We start the day with getting corn, blue bellflowers, and tomatoes up to level 9, and we have sweet potatoes trying their best, but they didn't make it this time. With the farming handled for today, it's time to stop stalling and head back to the Dragon's Tomb. We get the typical message that the game is telling us that this is the end, so make sure you have everything done you want to be done with. We ride the ominous elevator in silence, and at the top, Clarice is awaiting us. She already knows about Kamarosaki and openly embraces his power. Then, using the Amulet of Sacrifice, she fuses the body and heart of Miyoshi into one. This fight is actually brutal, Clarice and Miyoshi at the same time. And only the Kabunagi lets me land the finishing blow on Clarice. Instead of killing Clarice, we opt to free her from Kamarosaki's grasp, but Mihoshi still remains. The gods arrive with a plan though. We weaken Mihoshi by firing the 4 sacred treasures into the body. Then we'll use Severance to split the heart and body apart. After this exhausting push, the heart lands on the tomb. We're told to destroy it, but the thing regenerates endlessly. Only after the gods pour their strength into me do I channel the treasures, unleash the Dance of Legends, and finally bring Mihoshi down. The old tale of the Earth Dancer and the White Dragon wasn't just folklore, it's actually a prophecy. Wolby collapses in the aftermath, and for a moment it feels like we lost him, but a good old tickle session kind of does the trick. He pops back to life and the world breathes again. Clarice prepares to walk away, drowning in guilt and eyeliner-worthy angst, but we convince her to stay. Gods rally, the people celebrate, and the credits roll with a shot of the great tree in the spring village. But make note, this isn't the end. This is Rune Factory. There's always a post-game. Let's talk what the post-game goals are now. We want to get all bonds to level 10, raise every crop to level 9, complete the frog statue quest for Croaky, marry and have kids, raise all villagers to level 10, and finish the true post-game quests. So far, we're making steady progress on crops and side quests, but my social life is still missing. I need to get a wife and kids still. A quick note about village progress. Most of the village levels require harvesting 300 of a specific crop, so I'm kind of juggling all of that with decorations and stuff like that. It's not glamorous, we're basically just spamming decorations and buildings all over the place. Later that evening, Kai drags me into one of his never-ending tab disputes with Yachio. She can't get him to pay, but you know what? She still treats us to some food on the house, proving once again she's the only adult around here. In Winter Village, Fubuki admits the cold outside might be his fault. While doing so, Kurama and Kai stop by for an indoor snowball fight. We head outside and Fubuki shows off this incredible snowman he made and talks about his obsession with the rumored winter blossom he's been chasing for years. We agree to help him because we're a good guy like that. Meanwhile, Hina's poking at the soil in the Autumn Village and casually reveals that a typhoon once hit the area. Kurama admits that he caused it, and apparently it was the only way to end a drought, so nothing like divine disaster management. Finally, Moro gets wrapped up in another subplot, this time with Chuelong, who introduces him to ancient automata. Moro receives a book on the subject, but it's in an old language. Kurama agrees to translate, but only if we fetch him some stones. Kai leads us to the quarry, we deliver the goods, and the translation is done. By now, this day has stretched on forever, so I head to bed, exhausted, but ready for whatever the postgame has for me. Day 47 kicks off with more level 9 crops entering the fold. We got green peppers and rice this time. On top of that, I finally finished all the village goals except for the grindy harvest 300 of a season specific crops, so a little bit more work to do there. Still, this means that the days of cramming decorations at every corner and spending endless hours chopping wood and smashing rocks are finally behind me. After tidying up my farms and giving the fields a little bit of TLC, I swing by the summer village to check on Moro. He's buzzing about the book that Chuelong gave him, saying he loved reading it, even if there was really a lot of parts that he didn't understand. Chuelong offers to teach him more, but Moro declines. He knows himself too well. If he dove into machines, he'd never come back from it. Moro doesn't want to be chained down with a new obsession. He wants to be carefree, wild, and restless. Later that evening, I met up with Kaguya. We reminisce about our old village, and I even suggest holding a feast just so I can see her dance. Admittedly kind of weird move, but we're gonna run with it. We practice together for a bit, but then she suddenly feels unwell. I chat with Woolby and we both kind of sense that there's some kind of blight clinging to her. And just like that, things immediately escalate. A massive cloud of blight swallows Kaguya and whisks her away. I give chase and we clash with an echo of the Black Dragon. After the fight, Kaguya wakes up shaken and insists she should leave, but I convince her to stay, at least for now. And with that roller coaster behind us, we call it a night. Day 48 kicks off with more crops joining the level 9 club. This time we got sweet potatoes, radish, and carrots. It's Moro's birthday today, so I bring him an emerald. Nothing says happy birthday like shiny green rocks. Over at Hisui's, she's trying to get Ikaruga to relax, but the guy refuses to chill. So she pulls a probe move and hands us both tickets to the bath. We head on over there, we take a nice long soak, and we get a nice big meal, and even Mr. Grumpy starts to loosen up. At Yachio's, Kotaro is pulling pranks on villagers again. This sparks some nostalgia about how Kurama used to play with old folks when they were kids. Across the way, Moro is hanging out with Hina, searching for a treasure spot, and we step up and offer protection while he checks it out. And just behind us, Kurama is locked in an intense game of marble curling with Tsubame and Kotaro. We jump in and snag our first win on our first try, because apparently I'm great at every game life throws at me. Later, we try talking to Kurama about how the villagers adore him, but he brushes off like it's no big deal. Come the evening, we host a feast for Kaguya, our little dance routine goes off without a hitch, and while I'm not exactly a professional dancer, the crowd is satisfied. Exhausted, I call it a night. Nothing like dancing, treasure hunting, and bathhouse bro bonding all in one day. We have even more level 9 crops to announce on day 49. Today we have the golden turnip, the pineapple, and the Napa cabbage proudly joining the club. After wrapping up my farming chores, I meet up with Moro and we plan to head into the mechanical maze. We dodge a ridiculous amount of traps, but Moro gets banged up and we decide to retreat. He takes me on his airship afterward and we're seeing Azuma from a vantage point that was pretty stunning. We share a talk about Moro staying in Azuma and then we part our ways. Over in the Winter Village, Zaza mentions Fubuki's been acting strange. We check in and find him putting on a tough god act, which I remind him being himself is more than enough. Kanata and Uraraka chime in and give us some words of wisdom before leaving. Later that evening, we have villagers panicking about a missing child. We track them down in the autumn fields. They were scared by a wandering wolf. Ikaruga uses this chance to be cranky for no reason, and after tolerating his attitude for as long as I can, I decide my day is done today. Day 50 and we've hit the halfway point of this journey. Well, sorta, but we'll get into that later. Over in the Winter Village, Clarice is chatting with Zaza, saying she's bored now that she isn't constantly trying to kill us. Watarase and Pilika swing by with food, and before long we're sitting down for a feast. Clarice is still wrestling with the idea that people care about her. She can't quite wrap her head around the love and kindness being shown to her. On a brighter note, I finally hit my first bond level 10 with Murasame. It feels good seeing that grind start to pay off a little bit. Tonight also happens to be the firework festival. I talk with Matsuri in the morning and help choose the properties of the big special firework that's going to shoot off tonight. After making my choices, I stop in the Autumn Village where some villagers are worried about Kai. We track him down in the underworld where he's trying to convince Oni to leave and join humans on the surface. Shockingly, the Oni aren't really into it. Later, we head back to Zaza's shop where Ikaruga is waiting. He wants a special item made, and we end up accompanying him to the limestone cavern. There, we learn he's hunting the monster that killed his master. Turns out his master sacrificed himself to save Ikaruga, so Ikaruga has carried that burden this whole time. After we help him finish the job, we deliver the requested materials back to Zaza. Once night falls, it's festival time. I meet up with Kaguya at the beach, and the fireworks, especially the one I helped design, go off spectacularly. She seems genuinely moved by it. Afterwards, I stumble across Maro near Kurorama's house. He's brought a game for Kurorama to try, and Kurorama is absolutely hooked. Not long after, Yachio and Kurorama pull me aside about missing children. We track them to the Guardian's Grove and discover they've been trapped by a control tree. After putting the tree down, we return the kids safely. An elderly villager asks Kurorama to play with his grandchildren the same way he once played with them as a boy, and Kurorama agrees with a smile. With the festival wrapped up, the fireworks fade, and a few good deeds done, I call it a night. Day 51, and we start with Pumpkins joining the official Level 9 Crop Club. At Iroha's shop, we stumble upon what can only be described as a divine party. Every god is present, and even Clarice has wandered in. Things start out as cheerful, but when she tries to slip away, we ask her to stay. Instead of comfort, she snaps because forgiveness isn't the same as actually understanding the storm she's going through. Fair enough, Clarice. Later, in the Heavenly Realm, we swing by Kanata's office only to find a Wooly just chilling inside. Kanata, being Kanata, decided to adopt the little guy after finding it at the entrance. Sweet, but we gently remind her that maybe its family would want it back. With a bit of god-tier magic, the reunion happens. The Wooly runs back to its kin, but not without some serious, teary-eyed goodbyes. And with our eyes still puffy and hearts strangely heavy, we finally call it a night. Day 52 kicks off with some milestones worth celebrating. The Spring Village has finally hit level 10, and Ulaka joins the elite club of Bond level 10. That's a chef's kiss kind of day already. We stop in the follow-up with Kanata after the Woolly incident, only to find out she doesn't remember any of it. Weird. Rin fills us in that Kanata has been showing some serious gaps in her memory and slipping into odd behaviors. Skipping meals, quitting work, and acting like a cranky kid. Not exactly goddess of order kind of vibes. Kanata suggests we use the soul reflector to check on what's going on, so off we go. In the reflection, we meet Sorano, Kanata's child self that she's been suppressing. Kanata loses the internal tug of war and Sorano takes over, running wild with her power. We throw down, manage to beat Sorano, and restore balance. The takeaway though? Kanata realizes she can't keep stifling parts of herself, or she'll end up literally fighting her inner child. Therapy lesson unlocked. After that emotional roller coaster, Fubuki tells us about a scroll he found on the legendary winter blossoms. Naturally, we chase the mystery into the winter wilds. Turns out the blossoms only appear in windy, snowy conditions over water when the frost runes align just right. Basically the northern lights, but in flower form. Super rare, super fleeting, and honestly pretty magical. We wrap the day by trudging back home, chilled to the bone, and collapsing under a blanket. It's cozy and it's earned. Day 53 is here and I wake up to a massive surprise. Everyone from the Spring Village gathered to thank me for all the work I've put into the place. And honestly, they should be thankful. Afterwards, we find out that strawberries have officially joined the list of level 9 crops. Sweet victory has never tasted so red. With the village brimming with gratitude, I decide it's time to settle down. I finally confess my love to Kaguya, but she tells me she needs the day to think it over. Fair enough, but let's be honest, if this happened in real life, I'd probably just pack up and move across the country out of sheer embarrassment. Meanwhile, Ikaruga is acting off in Autumn Village, so we trail him to the Winter Village. Turns out he's trying to handle that monster situation on his own. To throw us off, he even sent us on a fake errand to Zaza and Chuelong, but of course, we catch up with him anyways. In the middle of the fight, he takes a nasty hit while shielding a child. The kid thanks him, but Ikaruga tries to brush it off with the usual too cool for emotions routine. Naturally, we don't let him. Later, we check in on Clarice, who's full on sulk mode. She begs us to judge and punish her, so we hit her with that most devastating punishment of all. Living her life to the fullest. Reverse psychology. It works every time. With that heavy moment tucked away, I decide to call it a night. This morning I swing by Kaguya's place to finally hear her decision. She's worried that my feelings are only tied to us being Bathrost in the past, but I reassure that's not the case. With that, we agree to make official. We're now boyfriend and girlfriend. The game even has us pick names for each other, which honestly felt more transactional than romantic. Nothing says true love like filling out paperwork. Later, we catch up with Kai in the Autumn Village, where he's chatting with Moro and Kotaro about his mask. Apparently nobody has ever seen what's under it, because Kai refuses to take it off, 24/7, no matter the activity. Training, eating, probably even bathing. That mystery is locked in tighter than a safe. With that revelation, the day winds down, and I call it a night. Day 55, and I'm jolted awake by Woolby, who apparently thinks being my alarm clock is part of his job description. His reason? Ulalaka wants to talk. Thanks, Wolby. Real noble cause for interrupting my beauty sleep. On the farming front, today's MVPs are white crystal flowers and golden cabbage, both hitting the exclusive level 9 club. Over at the curry cooking contest, I unleashed my level 9 curry pilaf. The results? Devastating. I took first place with a whopping 4,598 points, second place to even break 500. Honestly, I hope everyone cried into their curry when they saw that scoreboard. Later we stumble upon Kanata acting strange, whispering for us to stay quiet. Turns out she's in the middle of an intense game of hide and seek with some kids. We cap it off with some dango for everybody, and Kanata reveals that she's finally embracing her true self instead of suppressing it. Personal growth and snacks? What else could you ask for? Afterwards, I stopped by and talked to Iroha, and I hit bond level 10 with her. As the sun sets, I join Matsuri, Kai, and Ulalaka for what starts as a casual hangout but quickly devolves into a full-blown drinking contest. Somewhere between rounds, Kai admits that he wants the Oni to live on the surface, and we encourage him to be the bridge between their worlds. Kai actually takes that to heart, which is pretty inspiring, before heading off for the night. I follow suit, collapsing in the bed, probably still smelling like dango and sake. Day 56 and we start the day strong with more milestones. Kaguya and Suzu have both joined the Bond level 10 club. And on the farming side, Pink Mel makes it to level 9. Out in the Autumn Village, we catch Kurama hanging out with some kids who need a live target for their bean tossing practice. Naturally, Kai shows up and somehow we convince him to play the role of the moving bullseye. He actually embraces it, and don't ask me how, this turns into him gaining clarity about inviting Oni to live on the surface. The logic is questionable, but hey, progress is progress. We invite Clarice out for some dango, but before we can fully enjoy it, Suzu goes missing. We track her down and find a group of Oni causing trouble, so we hand out the beatdowns until Suzu's safe. Clarice, still wrestling with her past, tells us she's decided to live a life that takes as little as possible, hoping that atonement comes through restraint instead of destruction. A heavy moment tucked into what was supposed to be a snack time, but that's life in Azuma. Later, I take Kaguya out on what's supposed to be a date in the summer village, but instead of all the romantic strolls and fun, it turns into us literally helping everyone with their problems. Still, we agree it's the perfect date because it's helping is the kind of thing we do. And then to cap the day off, Matsuri hits Bond level 10. The days are definitely getting shorter as the checklist empties out, but that just means we're closing in on the finish line. Day 57 breezes by without too much fuss. I ask Kaguya out on another date, but this time we decide on a trip to the hot springs. Nothing says romance quite like steamy water. On the farming front, more crops hit level 9. Sticky rice and blue crystal flowers both join the elite club. Slowly but surely, the catalog is filling out. Beyond that, most of the day is spent grinding away at raising bonds with the rest of the villagers. Important work, but not exactly thrilling to watch. No big twists, no surprise god meetings, no emo cosplay interruptions, just a calm and productive day before we head to bed. Day 58 and Gold Pumpkins joined the level 9 crop list today. Today's also date day with Kaguya, though there was a bit of a mix-up. What I thought was going to be a quiet romantic hot spring outing turned into us being roped into advertising the new Autumn Village hot spring. Nothing says romance like unpaid marketing work. Still, we make the best of it, lounging in the springs, having a heartfelt conversation about the village, and probably dozing off like an old couple after Thanksgiving dinner. When we wake up, we realize we forgot to even take pictures in the springs, but hey, our happy faces were more than proof enough that it was worth it. And with that, we wrap things up and head to bed. Day 59 and nothing crazy to start, but we did hit Bond level 10 with Takuma today. We also keep the romance momentum going today by inviting Kaguya out on yet another date. This time she chooses the most nerve-wracking option possible, coming over to my place, aka my shrine. Any single folks out there know that the anxiety of having a significant other visiting your place for the first time. Suddenly every corner looks dusty, every cushion is crooked, and you're wondering if you should have burned incense 3 hours ago. We head over to the Autumn Village and we see Ikaruga hanging out like the world's worst chaperone. He fills us in on some troubling news. Apparently Kai is prepping an Oni army in the underworld. Sounds like a crisis, so naturally we sprint on down there. Sure enough, Kai is there with his Oni squad, declaring their intent to storm the surface. Tensions rise, Kurama and his crew square off against Kai and the Oni, and the stage is set for war. Then, with a flash of light, beans going flying everywhere. Turns out Kai was just staging the world's most terrifying playdate. What looked like a battle for Azuma's survival was actually just a bean throwing party between the Oni and villagers. And just when we thought our hearts couldn't handle any more, Kai catches a bean in the eye, drops his mask, and boom. Maskless Kai, as dreamy as ever. After surviving a fake war, I decided that that's enough excitement for today, and we're gonna head off to bed. Day 60, and we start off with some level 9 crops, red crystal flower and amory flowers. On the bond front, Sakaki officially joins the level 10 club as well. After my morning chores and mingling, I head back to the shrine, and I may have forgotten to warn Woolby that my girlfriend was coming over, but he'll survive the surprise. Kaguya stops by the shrine to just chill, as the kids say, and it turns into a lovely little hangout. We eventually wander in the Spring Village for a walk, talking about usual life stuff, including children. That's when Woolby, ever the third wheel, decides to butt in and call us out on our baby talk. Thanks, pal. Nothing like your talking sheep reminding you that parenthood might be in the cards. After all that, I decided it was best just to wrap up the day and catch some Z's. Day 61 starts with Woolby rudely waking me up and deciding he needs to talk to me about merit. He explains that if we're serious about settling down, we need two things: a special plum branch and some sacred sake. He also casually mentions that there's a Fate Weaver shrine nearby and basically screams, "This is your wedding venue." Naturally, I jump on the prep work. First, I plant the plum tree behind the shrine like a pro landscaper. Then I brew up the sacred sake, making sure not to chug it myself. I then head on out and make my way over to the fishing contest. This one's pretty simple. The rules are we catch the most fish. Easy enough, so I put my line out there and start catching fish like a maniac. I managed to catch 28 before I decided that was enough. With my free time, I decided to mingle a little bit. Fubuki's hanging around, so I chat with him, and boom, Winter Village gets bumped up to level 10. Bond levels are progressing as well, as Kusatsu joins the level 10 bond club. By the time I return to the shrine for the contest results, I try to act surprised when they announce that I won. All this farming, fishing, and fake humility wears a guy out, so I decided it's more than enough for today. I'm going to take some time to recharge and hit it hard tomorrow. Day 62 arrives, and we managed to get the Summer Village up to level 10. I also do a ton of mingling today and managed to get Fubuki, Kurama, Yachio, Ikaruga, and Palika all up to level 10 bonds. With all that completed, I decided to give myself a well-earned break and call it early. Day 63 starts with us waking up at the Winter Shrine and being greeted by the entire Winter Village. They thank me for all the work I've done, and I am very humbled. I managed to max out bonds today with Maru and Hina. Nothing else major to talk about for day 63, so we just call it there. Day 64 kicks off with another round of thanks, this time from everybody in the Summer Village. Over at the shrine, I check on the plum tree and finally snag a branch from it, one step closer to this whole marriage thing Woolby won't stop nagging me about. Later, I spot Clarice down at the beach, and for the first time, she's not rocking her full emo cosplay. Turns out with the eyeliner and doom and gloom vibes, she actually looks normal, which is pretty wild. To wrap things up, I meet with Kaguya and ask her to join me at the Fate Weaver shrine tomorrow. She agrees, which means the big day is officially on the calendar. I go to bed wondering if I should prep vows or just bring in extra onigiri as backup. Day 65 starts with some big news. Kanata and Chuelong join the Bond Level 10 club. But now it's time for the real event. Kaguya and I finally make our way to the Fate Weaver shrine. I step away for a moment, and honestly, if she hasn't figured out what's coming at this point, then she's as dense as a rock. When I return, I hand her the plum branch along with a note. That's when it clicks. This isn't just a stroll, it's a proposal. Kaguya admits that she's always pictured a future with me, but her insecurity flares up for a second, like she's giving me one last chance to back out. Then, in the classic twist of fate fashion, she flips the script and pops me the question. Of course I said yes. Your gym teacher is officially marrying your English teacher. Not much else happens after that. I mean, how else do you top a proposal? We call it an early day and I go to bed thinking, yep, this one is for the highlight reel. Day 66 is here and it is wedding day. Naturally, this means a victory lap through every single village so everyone can stop us, clap, and pile on the congratulations. It's basically one long parade of thank yous, and you two are so cute, which honestly, we deserve. At the Fate Weaver Shrine, each god steps up to give us their blessing. It's a nice mix of heartfelt, awkward, and possibly condescending. But hey, blessings are blessings. The rituals start, and let me tell you, the highlight is absolutely pounding sake like it's a frat party. Azuma really knows how to throw a wedding. And then Woolby makes his grand appearance. His blessing? Not gold, not wisdom, not even a gift card, no. He decides to breathe his hot dragon stink breath all over us like a malfunctioning humidifier. And somehow we're honored? The ceremony wraps, credits roll again, and we hit the second ending for Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Afterwards, back at the shrine, Kaguya and I celebrate by picking nicknames for each other. And then with the sake buzz still lingering and our hearts all mushy, we decide to call it an early night. Day 67, we wake up a newly married man, but the grind never stops. Today's big event is the saltwater fishing contest, where the goal is to reel in the largest catch. I cast my line early and snag a monster 237.9 centimeter tuna, a personal best. Honestly, that fish was so big I didn't even bother trying for another one. No way anyone was topping that one. I decided just to hang out and mingle, and I made some more progress with bonds. Kai, Clarice, and Zaza all hit level 10. And then in the evening, I got Tsubami and Hisui up to level 10 as well. By the time I returned to the contest, it was no surprise that my giant tuna secured first place. After such a packed day of victories, I was barely able to keep my eyes open. I crashed into bed next to my wife, dreaming of the day when the fishing leaderboard has to add a new column just for my absurd catches. Day 68 is here, and it's a milestone-packed day. Golden potatoes and green crystal flowers both join the level 9 club, and then Kataro finally hits bond level 10. Not long after, I harvest my pink bellflowers, and they are level 9 as well. It means every single crop in Azuma has now been raised to level 9 by me. That's right, that goal is finally completed. Achievements don't stop there though, because we actually got Wada Rase up to max bond level as well. So if we check the board, that means every single villager has been raised up to bond level 10. With my crops perfected and my friendships maxed, that wraps the day up. I'm gonna go to bed. It's finally the fun number day, and to celebrate, we max out the Autumn Village to level 10. Sometimes progress isn't a big flashy cutscene, just a clean satisfying checkmark on the goals list. With nothing else major to do, we head to bed. Coming right off the fun number day, the entire Autumn Village gathers to give their thanks for everything I've done. I knock out a few chores during the day, but the real highlight comes in the evening. Kaguya and I head to Lantern Festival, where we send out our lanterns and watch the river light up as dozens more drift downstream. The scene is calm, almost meditative, and feels like one of those perfect pauses after all the chaos Azuma has thrown at us. With the glow of the lanterns fading into the night and nothing left to do, we head home and rest. Day 71 is here, and it wouldn't be a proper farming sim if kids weren't part of the picture. Kaguya brings up the idea of having children, and naturally I agree. Of course, Wolby can't resist barging into the private moment, reminding us that we need to pray again at the Fate Weaver Shrine to seal the deal. After the prayer, there isn't much left to do, so we head out to bed. At this point though, it's worth noting that we've wrapped up nearly all our major goals. The villages are maxed out, crops are leveled, and bonds are completed. The only task left is having children, and with that comes the final unlocks for the post-story dungeons. Keep things moving, I'll just be skipping days where not much happens until the major events kick back in. Day 73 is here, and it's time for the squid catching contest. This contest really turns into a test of patience and persistence. I spent a good chunk of the day hopping between fishing spots until finally, out in the Isle of the Fog, I reel in a monster 80cm squid. With that one in the bag, the rest of the contest feels like smooth sailing, and sure enough, I take home first place with no issues. This victory is extra sweet because it actually marks the completion of every single contest in Rune Factory. And not just completed, but swept. I managed to get first place in all of them. A perfect run on contest to go alongside with all the other goals we've been knocking out. Day 76 is here, and Kaguya and I make our way to the Fate Weaver Shrine for a little bit more praying. Afterward, Kaguya starts feeling unwell, and of course Wolby decides it's the perfect time to play doctor with his dragon vision. He reveals the big news though, Kaguya is pregnant. We talk about our hopes for the child, and I just leave it to fate and say, hey, you know what, surprise me. With children in my future, I decide to head on home and catch some sleep. Jumping to day 81, and I need everybody to stay calm because the big day is here. Wolby rallies the whole village to help support Kaguya as she goes into labor. After some tense waiting, we're finally invited back to meet our new baby. Welcome to the world, Umi. We're treated to a heartwarming montage of the villagers coming together to celebrate Umi's arrival. Then in a flash forward, we see Iron, Kaguya, and Umi beneath the great spring tree, except Umi isn't a baby anymore. Turns out 5 whole years have actually passed. That's right, our 100-day run just pulled a full-on time skip. On the Azuma calendar, technically it's day 681. Since today doubles as Umi's birthday, we make sure to give him a present to mark the occasion. And as any good father would, I immediately throw him into an adventuring party and drag him through the most dangerous dungeon to slay high-level monsters. Trial by fire builds character, right? After testing his resolve and watching him keep pace, we call it a night, our family one hero stronger. Skipping to day 83, and it starts with Umi bringing me a piece of Mihoshi's heart. So casual, like he's handing me a seashell. The gods quickly assemble at the shrine and figure out what we're going to do about this situation. We decide that the first step should be to track down all the remaining fragments of the heart before we make any big decisions. We take to the sky and battle 4 monsters, each holding a shard of Mihoshi's heart. After collecting them all, we return to the shrine and discuss taking the 4 pieces into the Forest of Endings. Nobody really knows much about this place. It's mysterious, unsettling, and not exactly on anyone's vacation list, but someone has to step up. Kaguya won't let me go alone, real ride or die wife energy. So we head into the Heavenly Realm, find the portal, and begin our journey. The Forest of Endings is broken up into levels, each with their own flavor of danger. We make our ways through level 1, 2, 3, and 4, each one with a twisted reflection of places I've already seen in Azuma. complete with familiar bosses guarding the exits. By the time we unlock the warp point for level 5, I'm ready to crash, so we retreat for the night and rest up before diving deeper. Day 84 is here and I have no time to waste. I head straight back to the Forest of Endings to keep carving a path forward towards Mihoshi's heart. Today I managed to clear levels 5, 6, and 7, and honestly I'm really enjoying the challenge. The dungeon is no joke, it's forcing me to actually think about every move. I've had to rely on items, swap to special abilities at the right moments, and make sure my gear is properly upgraded so I'm not falling behind on damage. It feels like a real test of everything I've built up so far. Honestly, I wish the main story had leaned into this level of difficulty. The stakes feel higher, every fight feels earned, and finally puts all the systems to use. And day 85, and we're back at the Forest of Endings again, starting on level 8 and grinding our way through to level 9. At the end, we finally come face to face with Mihoshi's current form. After offering a blessing, Mihoshi speaks to us directly. She reveals that she has accepted the heart shards that we brought back to her through the Forest of Endings, and admits that she's actually released the shards to the surface to lure us in. From our actions, we learn that the Celestial Clap has been postponed for a very long time, though not completely erased. Humans remain the wild card in the fragile balance. Mihoshi's current form isn't even her true body, but rather a device made to watch over Azuma, one she uses as a host, basically. She explains that after each collapse, new gods are chosen to take over, but we've become the first in history to actually prevent the collapse. Then comes the biggest reveal. The White Dragon was actually meant to select a god to rule over Azuma itself. Mihoshi offers us the role to take her place, to rule as the 7th god of Azuma, the one who stands above all others. And honestly, who could say no to a title that snappy? I accept, and that's when we become the 7th god of Azuma. The credits roll again, our third ending of the game, and with it, the curtain falls on the post-game story content. I'll be honest though, I'm feeling a little bit bummed at this point. It was such a high to kind of get to this point. But I'm not ready to put down the controller yet. My plan is to keep going, raise Umi up to bottom level 10, and complete a full year in the game before calling it quits. Day 86 is here, and I remember that I needed to go talk to Croaky and let him know about all the frog statues I found. So I head over and let him know that we actually found the last of the 204 statues. As we're speaking with Croaky, he's a little bit cryptic and mysterious with us. Eventually we turn around to check on something, and we turn back and we see a frog statue in his place. This actually wraps up all the side quest goals now. We have completed every single side quest that the game has to offer. At this point, there's only a few items on our checklist, and that's going to be raising Umi to bottom level 10, experiencing the last 2 festivals, and reaching the 1-year mark in Azuma. Since these goals require just a quick passage of time, we're actually just going to speed through and just kind of hit the major points to the end. Day 97, and we hit bond level 10 with Umi, which means we once again maxed out bond. Day 111, Kaguya comes to me with that familiar look in her eyes and asks if I want another child. Like I'm gonna say no. We agree to go through the process again, and honestly, I'm not going to complain about that. Day 114 is the Snow Festival. Kaguya and I huddle together in a small igloo, enjoying the quiet in each other's company. If I had to guess, this is probably where the new baby really got started. Day 116, and we confirm it. Kaguya is pregnant again. This time I put in my request for a girl because rounding out my family into a classic nuclear setup just feels right. Day 121, and it's actually the first pilgrimage festival. Kaguya and I participate, doing some prayers, and that's honestly about it. Not every festival has to be a blowout, I guess. Day 122 is here, and we welcome our daughter Suyu into the family. This actually starts another 5-year time skip, where we actually see Suyu grow up alongside Umi. Except Umi hasn't aged today, which is kind of unsettling. For those keeping track, this would technically put us at day 1322 in the Azuma calendar. This is where it feels like it's the right place to wrap up this journey. I know I didn't grind Suyu's bond level to 10, but after doing it once with Umi, I think it's safe to assume the path is more or less the same. The premise was 100 days, but pushing it a little further gave the story a clean, round ending. And with that, the curtain falls on my time with Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. If you made it this far into the video, first of all, I want to say thank you. You're a real one. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma has been quite the adventure, so to wrap things up, I've broken down my thoughts into 5 categories: main story, gameplay, farming and town management, social, and post-game. Regarding the main story, I'm a simple man when it comes to stories. I'm not here to break down deep literary themes, but to me, the narrative was fun in this game. It's a straightforward hero's journey. The protagonist solves problems, faces bigger problems, and ultimately saves the world through the power of friendship and determination. There were generally some funny moments alongside a few spots that felt unclear or really drawn out. Since I was covering this game as a day-to-day basis, it's hard to really capture all the nuance without video ballooning up to like 6 hours, 10 hours. So I'll say overall, serviceable story, nothing groundbreaking, but enjoyable from start to finish. Regarding gameplay, this is where I feel like the game really shines. The controls feel smooth and responsive, with the one big caveat being dodging. The heavy animation lock after weapon swings makes dodging feel really clunky at times, and waiting out the animations could be really frustrating. That said though, combat overall was fun, and the game keeps a satisfying flow once you get into the groove. The difficulty, however, was pretty much non-existent if you kept up with upgrades, placed enough buildings and decorations in the villages to boost your stats. Accessories also felt underwhelming. There's little to no noticeable impact compared to other gear. A stronger design around that equipment slot would have gone a long way. Regarding farming and town management, I really wasn't surprised that farming was simplified because this was actually a spin-off. The real focus here is on the village management, assigning villagers, placing decorations, and meeting requirements to level up the towns. While functional, this aspect often felt like it's more like managing spreadsheets than something deeply engaging. It's interesting for the player, but it's not exactly thrilling to watch in a long play. That said, I appreciate that farming was still available for those of us that enjoy it. The crop leveling mechanic gave me something meaningful to chase, even if the farming loop itself would lack depth. My hope is that Rune Factory 6 swings back more to the robust farming systems while keeping the improvements made here. The social side of the game worked well overall, though it sometimes leaned too heavily into a generic or overly drawn out plot lines. Character arcs occasionally dragged and a few felt like filler, but the bond system was pretty solid. Reaching higher bond levels offered tangible benefits for combat and exploration. While maxing out every relationship felt like a grind at times, it was still rewarding in the end. Regarding post-game, this is where I felt the most disappointed. I was hoping for a repeatable roguelike style dungeon that pushed me to max out my gears, skills, and stats in pursuit of tougher challenges. The force of endings was cool, but it felt more like a finale than an ongoing roguelike dungeon. Once it was done, there was no real reason to keep playing beyond personal goals like bonds or crops. The game could really benefit from a more compelling endgame loop to keep players engaged after the story wraps. Overall, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma may not be perfect, but it was a memorable and enjoyable experience. The story gave me enough to stay invested, the gameplay loop was fun despite its lack of challenge, and the farm-town management systems were simplified but still scratched the itch. If future Rune Factory titles take the best parts of the spin-off and refine the weaker areas, I think we're really in for something special. Until then, Guardians of Azuma stands as a fun entry that really gave me plenty of laughs, challenges, and memorable moments. Thanks again for sticking with me through this playthrough. I hope you had as much fun watching as I did playing. I'll catch you guys on the next one.